In this video, I really want to break down how you would determine if a guy is actually going to move position and play well. There's a few options here that we're going to speak about. Guys like Perham, we've got Hamiso, Tabuai, and then Tommy Gilbert are going to be three of the big options that we're looking at putting in our teams this year. But they're really clearly moving from a position that they've played a fair bit into a new position where we're really not sure. There's a lot of unknown as to how they're going to go. So I'm going to show you how that we can determine potentially how they could go. And a lot of it's based on the type of team that they're in, how that team's going to go, and if they possess the skills necessary for that position where they get a lot of their attacking stats, for example, in a fullback position like Perham. And then are they really good with their base stats, for example, and can pass the ball well in amongst the forwards there in Tommy Gilbert. So let's kick it off with Perham. And we don't have a lot of knowledge here with him on fullback. So he played the 67 minutes there in the last round of 2021. And those last rounds, it's very hard to determine how a player goes. We've seen guys like Toby Sexton come out in those last bunch of rounds and absolutely kill it. Maybe it's the opposite fortunes here for Perham with a 20 in that 67 minutes, means he can average a lot more now that he's going to potentially moving to fullback. Sounds like he's got that position locked down now. So you look at his other scores, that's going to be a first determiner. Can they score well in other positions? So we've got obviously a few tries in here, nothing too crazy. We're sitting with 5 tries overall, but he's got a 37 at winger, a 35 with 2 tries at winger. Not so nice either. But actually a couple of okay scores at centre. He's got 37, 34, 36, and a 28. And we look at the stats, so he's just got 1 try in that one and 1 try assist across those games. Tackles aren't too bad. He actually doesn't miss too many, which is obviously good because at fullback, you're going to get some opportunities to make those one-on-one tackles. And if you're solid in that, that really goes a bit of a way there to sort of save you 4 or 5 points. So that's a good starter for Hayes there. And meters gained, he never had a game over 147 meters. So when he's moving to fullback, you'd expect it to be either similar or probably slightly down on what your winger meters are, especially in this day and age. Your wingers are your meter readers out of trouble. So that's just a quick determiner of what we're looking at with Perham. But given that fullback is notoriously a better scoring position than winger and centre, and he only has to score a 26, 28, 30 kind of score week to week on average in a team that's going to be better. That is why most people are interested in him. And his ownership percentage is up at 15% this year. And he is the most hot player in the game in terms of people bringing him in after that news. So let's go to a few examples now of where the transition from wing or center hasn't worked so well. It's been okay. And then some options where it has gone really well. So we'll speak about Hammer first up. So he's obviously got a lot more games there. And if we filter that, last year you got the 21.6 average. We can filter here. So I'll just show you how to use footystatistics.com as well. So we filter him to center, for example, and all but that 22 there. So we can take out that 22-minute games, any wing over 50, gives us a good base of knowledge there. 34.4 was his average in center. Okay, beautiful. That usually is one of the lowest scoring positions. Let's move to winger now. And all of those games are 80 plus, which is cool. So we have a 27.7. So even him on the wing, if he was to get 80 minutes a game, there are a bunch of tries in there, and he was playing for a good side. He moves to a side that's a little bit lesser. Still, that 27.7 would make him money. Now let's move to a fullback position. And what we see here is him, that 57 minutes. We can take out that one if we like. There we go. So we've got a 33 average at fullback. So just looking at that, he has a dual position. He's going to be in a lesser side, but it is going to be his to really look after and sort of dominate from the attacking point of view. He's a guy that's improving. So this is the reason why we look at him and go, okay, he's a good option for your side this year to play in that tough center position or the wing fullback. Bennett's come out and said it's his team. He's going to be in that one position. So with a price of $372, it shows there's definitely a fair bit of value for him. So what that means really is the 33 average is very similar to him at center. That could be a determining factor as to how Perham could go, right? If you look at his center scores, he averages 27.3. So that still gives him some value there at fullback, even if he was just to match that. But as I said, notoriously, fullback is a better scoring position. So that's a good determiner of at least he's going to make some money, right? That's Hamiso. We then move to the next player, which we're going to talk about is Jermaine Osako. And this is a guy where it didn't work perfectly. He's priced at 28 there. And with Hamiso, he's not priced at that 21, knowing that he was going to be probably playing that fullback. He's up around that 27 mark in terms of his price. So you're looking to him at that 33 at a minimum, getting 6 points of value, which is not bad. Asako on the other hand. So we look at his winging efforts there. So price-wise for him, and scoring-wise for him is at that 31 average. So that shows that part of it. And then we move it to when he plays at fullback. Okay, so the average for him when he plays at fullback is 36. So we go up 6 points there, 5.5 to 6 points for Asako. So that's a good little indicator that he was someone that wasn't really successful in his move to fullback. You know, we always thought that he was probably a better winger. He was someone that kicked goals. There's still a decent amount of tries in there without being ridiculous. So it's a really good way to show that in a team that's okay in the Broncos over the last bunch of years since he's played there, that Perham is going to be in a team that's also going to be sort of mid-table, I'd say, this year, and potentially growing from there. That's a pretty good comp there, is Asako. That's 5 to 6 points of value increase is probably a decent way to think about it. So again, a nice idea as to how that would work. We move on to Averillo, who's actually in the same team and has played a multitude of different positions. I was just having a look here before. The amount of changes he's had over his career. We've got 5'8" games, we've got halfback, we've got centre, we've got wing, and all decent stretches of it. So I hope for him and his sake that he's able to get a bit of a role, lock down a role this year, whether it is, probably is going to be in centre. And if it is on that left side, he's going to have a pretty good run of it with Burton, Kickout, and obviously Adokar there as well. But we look to him at winger to start off with. So only a couple of games there, average 33 across those two with no tries. At centre, we have a little bit more to think about. So take out that 16-minute game, and he's averaging about 23 in his centre games. And we look at his fullback games there, and there's obviously a few more to speak of, and he does average 30 in that. So again, shows that really at the fullback position, if you're averaging anywhere under 30, you're doing it pretty tough. So for Perham, price at that 21, anywhere around that 28 to 30, you're going to make enough cash. And a score of 30 a week at the start in a tough fullback position or on your bench is not the worst thing in the world. So I definitely think you can, just basing off that, guys, this is a great way to do your studies, to get comparable players that have made the same transition as the guy you're looking at, Hamiso or Perham there, when they don't have many games to show. Tessie New is someone who did a little bit better than even the guys before. So those first three examples were guys that haven't done it perfectly well. They're averaging around that 30, 35, which is nothing special for a fullback position. So now we move to Tessie New, who has played, again, a few different positions. We start with him in his centre role there, 32 for him in that position. For his wing, he had one game of 33, and you look at fullback there, and a lot more games, and he averaged 38. So again, about that 5 to 6 points of value in an extended period of time at fullback in a team that wasn't too great. He's a solid player, nothing special, but he's decent at that. So Tessie, another good comp if you're looking at Hayes Perham to go on your side. Next guy, someone who has done it fairly well is Nick Meaney. He's obviously comes in at 5.76, and he's played a bunch of different positions as well. So let's filter it by winger to start off with. And in the majority of his games there, he averages 31.5. So for a winger, pretty normal, to be honest. If we move it to fullback, he's obviously been in a couple of teams. So you look at, obviously, a lot of Bulldogs games at fullback, and then you have some Storm games at fullback. So we can change this up in terms of year as well. But overall, his fullback stats are an average of 36. Again, including a lot of games at the Dogs there. If we just go straight to season 2022, we have a 44.6 average for Meaney at the Storm. Again, so that shows the difference. Obviously, him improving as a player a little bit, but then the difference between two teams in the Storm and also the Dogs. So if you see the Dogs improving a little bit, you can probably see Perham improving on Averillo's average, where he played fullback in a side that wasn't as good. Again, so it's another example, guys, of the difference that you can have between playing the fullback position and also the winger position. Again, if you just play this for 2022 when he was on the wing for the Storm, his average was even better there than it was for his career, a 37 compared to a 30. So yeah, that's the difference that you can see between an average team and a really good team in the Storm. And he's actually someone, Nick, that sounds like he's going to be playing fullback this year as well, with Pat giving no return date at this stage. So Nick averaging 44 last year at fullback. He's priced at 40, so really still not a great deal of value on him. But again, shows what you can do if you're a solid player. Nick Meaney is a solid player. in a pretty good team. So if the Dogs can do really well this year, Perham should do well also. And that's probably where the worry lies for Hamiso. He comes from a better Cowboys team to a not so good Dolphins team, and really has to manufacture a lot of the work himself. And he's never been someone to have crazy big meters gained. For example, at fullback, it's not too bad, but he still has games at 92, 49, 32. He can be a little bit off like that. Similar to Latrell in terms of having those low meters games, but Latrell obviously does so much more in terms of the passing game. So yeah, that's those guys there. We move to a guy that has done it really well, and that is Val Holmes. So we kick him off at the wing position, and across his career, has a lot of games. He averages 30 on the wing. So probably a little bit different when you look at his games for Queensland, but that's another story. We won't talk about that one. 42 at centre. So that includes obviously last year's awesome effort and just a couple of games in 2021. So we can't really gauge that too much because he is a really good player. Let's look at his fullback stats there. So across his career, he averages 41.3 at fullback. So again, an 11-point increase from his winger stats. So he ends up averaging 1 point more at centre, but again, that was in last year when he was playing really, really well in a great team. So Val has played for a few good teams over his career. Obviously, the Sharks being the big one there, where he helped them, helped them do really, really well. And then the Cowboys last year. So good team. Usually provides good scores if you're a solid player, and he's a great player at that. So again, a good example as to how someone moving from wing to fullback has transitioned. We move to Ruben Garrick, and he's someone that is very similar to that. We look at his winger stats over his career, and what you see is a 38 average. Obviously, he's been playing on that left side on the back of some Tommy Jabojevic brilliance. You see 103 here, 91, 4 try, 77 effort. There's 80s in there. He kicks goals, and when they're flying, he's going to do pretty well. So he's obviously a good player, whether he's on the wing or at fullback as well. His fullback stats, he averages 49, so a big increase on those winger stats. Again, another way where you can show that moving from winger to fullback is really good. Okay, we move on, guys. I hope that's really helped you guys out as to show how you can transition well between those positions, and what could change if you do play at fullback and then go back to a center or a wing position. Tom Gilbert's going to be the interesting one now. So he's someone that I'm really, really unsure about. If you look at his stats here, guys, he's got lots of second row efforts. A lot of time we spoke about him moving from second row to the middle during games. So it's really hard to determine if you go back, you have to go back and watch each game as to when he did transition and how many minutes he played in each position there. But you're looking at games here where he's got 3 at the prop position, a 38 in 45 minutes, a 36 in 55 minutes, and a 37 in 77 minutes. Okay, so you look down a little bit further, he had a really good game of 50 in 42. So the PPM isn't anything crazy. Let's go look at him just at the second row position. All right, or a multitude of different minutes. They're all about 40 plus. Let's even put it over 50 in the second row to make that easy. So he's got a 44 average in 63 minutes there. That gives him, even just playing big minutes on the edge, gives him about a 4 to 5 point in a value uptick there. He's got the dual position, so that's where he's got a lot of interest as well. Now let's look at those prop minutes there. Let's go for over 50, so all over 50. Let's go over 40. He's got 4 games there for a 40 average and 55 minutes. So that is actually scary to me. I don't see him playing much more than 55 to 60 minutes. So this is where I'm a little bit worried about his ability to come out and have an absolute belter of a season. It's just that we want him to be averaging at least 45 to 50, because if he's not anywhere near 50, then he's not going to be a keeper in your team, and you're probably just using him for a bunch of weeks and then moving him on. And there is a worry that he just holds at that 40 average. Yes, you've got the dual. Yes, he's not losing money, but there's other guys in this position that are a good chance of actually rising in value and getting close to that 45 to 50, 55 points there, that if they can get a bunch of tries and stuff like Luke Garner and these types of players who are actually a lot cheaper than what Tommy is at this point. So now let's look at guys that have made that transition, because he's going to go from edge to the straight middle this year. And there's some similarities to a bunch of these players. We're going to look at Mitch Barnett, we look at Tohu Harris, and we look at Isaiah Yeo, who have all made that transition over the years or played in both positions. So Barnett's clearly a guy that has a lot of the games, plays edge, and then he moves to that middle as well. So let's have a look at that now. In terms of his second row position, we spoke about him in the middles video, and I found a fair bit of interest in him. When he plays over 50 minutes in that second row across his career, it's a 48 average, and that's averaging 76 minutes. So the PPM's pretty low there. Obviously, that's pretty normal though for edge guys at that sort of 0.6 and a bit there. If we move to the lock roll, we get him again over 50 minutes. If you're lucky to get that, 47 points in 65 minutes. So that's still really big minutes and still a solid average there. And you've got some time here at prop for him, just the one game. So again, you're looking at second row, and we said it's what, 48 there. And then he moves to the middle, and it actually decreases a little bit. So this is somewhere where it hasn't worked out perfectly. The minutes are still great, but his average actually drops a little bit. So he's one of those players where he kind of makes as many tackles and runs the ball as much on the edge that he does in the middle. So the base stats don't increase too much, just a tiny bit. In that sort of 10 less minutes. But what we're looking for is there's going to be a clear drop in minutes from a guy moving from the edge to the middle. Can they make up for it with those base stats? Because a lot of time you're losing their opportunity to score tries that you would on an edge. So Barnett this year, I was pretty high on him playing on an edge, just because you look at his stats and he plays a lot better in that position. And then other guys move better from the edge and score a lot better in the middle. So he's definitely an interesting one, and a guy where it hasn't really worked out when he moves from an edge to the middle. And I actually see them as playing, they've played similar roles over the years. So it'd be interesting to see if he can make that transition, Gilbert. As he improves as a player, there's definitely some value here. If he does get that 65 minutes, Gilbert, then I do see him averaging about this, which gives him 7 points of value. So still interesting either way, but we just don't know his role at the moment. Is he going to be getting those huge minutes, or is he going to be stuck in that 55 range, 50 range even? We just don't even know. We move to Tohu Harris, and he's an interesting one because he has turned into a gun in the middle, and so has Isaiah Yeo. When you look at both of their edge stats, they were great when they were cheap and coming up through the ranks. And once they got to a year on that edge, they became a player that you could not pick up. So we'll look at that now. He's obviously got plenty of different positions that he has played over his career. We look at second row, and we'll go over 60 minutes for him when he gets that position. So across his career, he's still a 53 average on that edge, and that included plenty of games there where he was really dominant for the Storm team. So yeah, once he was all the games that he was in that one, he was able to score a bunch of tries, which you can see here in that Storm system. And then Felice Kafusi comes in and plays that role. Since moving to the Warriors, he still has had a bunch of games in that position. You see a bunch of 70s in here, the random try. Is still able to play some second row games. He saw 2021, he was absolutely dominant, but those second row games, he would kind of mix between that edge and middle role. So we move to the lock position for him, and that's where he's absolutely at his best. So when he does get over 60 minutes, he obviously has 58, but most of the time, it doesn't really matter for him. When he plays lock, he's always playing big minutes. So about 76 he plays. So very similar to Simon Mannering type of role in that middle where he absolutely dominates. So that's 5 points extra and no drop in minutes. So he's an interesting one to think about, because with Gilbert, you doubt that he plays that 75 to 80 minutes that guys like Tohu Harris and Isaiah Yeo does. So if he can move into that status of a 75 to full game type of player, then clearly there's going to be some value on a guy priced at 40 that Gilbert is. But most people don't do that. So that's the main worry, is that they get down into that sort of, you lose 10 to 15 minutes there, and your average doesn't really change from what it was on the edge. So that's that for Tohu, who's obviously one of the guys that we talk about each and every year as a top gun. And then Isaiah Yeo, who's at 847 obviously, and he's been incredible over his career. But we have a lot of second row games to talk about with him. Again, we'll look at over those 60 minutes, which is what you would get on an edge as a gun second rower there. 43 for him is his career average on an edge. Obviously, you got to think about the natural improvement that these guys have, because Isaiah went through all of these years without, just slowly improving, and then he actually got his chance in the middle eventually. You see here a lot of these second row games. There's some solid ones, 60s, 50s, 70s in this kind of year there, and then he eventually moved to the middle, and his scores have skyrocketed from that 43 average all the way up to the lock roll there over 60 minutes. And he averages 57 over his career there. So he's got a few games, bits and pieces earlier on, and then from 2020 onwards, he had a really good year. 2021 was incredible, and so was 2022. So You see the big minutes on a regular basis, 73.6 when he gets over the 60 minutes. Again, only a 5 to 7 minute drop from the edge to the middle. And is Gilbert going to be able to get that? That is the big question that you need to ask yourself. But you can do this with a lot of different positions, guys. If guys moving from 5/8 where they're not really kicking the ball much, and they happen to get a dominant half roll, they get a lot more touches, and they are able to kick the ball a lot more. They're more likely to have some try assists. Maybe they get the goal kicking. There's so many ways that you can do these little comparisons. So if you guys would like me to do sort of something like that, where it's moving from a 6 to a 7, or a guy moving from center to wing or wing to center, for example, it could be some differences and some examples that you can look at. But just think of this throughout the preseason. Obviously, through the season, this is going to be really cool to have a look at as well. So thank you for sticking around through this whole video, guys. As we saw last week, we just dropped the private group. There's obviously different options there. If you would just like to learn a little bit more about what we're going to do here, is going to be going through a lot of deep dive breakdowns into certain players. We're going to compare a lot of them, kind of like we do here. Lots of different statistics to go through, and it's really going to kick off that last couple of weeks in preseason, and then week to week, there's going to be a lot of those deep dives and access to me completely. And I can't wait to meet all you guys, and I hope you guys get to meet each other in the community as well, with lots of prizes that are going to be seen week to week. So that's it, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.